Okay, who'd like to read today?
Krishna Prabhu, just before you start, can I, sorry I missed the class a week before last, but I've been requesting a recording for that from yourself and from my Institute.
Yeah. Rudradeep Rimai, last time's recording, can you please upload it onto this thing, YouTube?
Sure.
Is there any reason why it's not uploaded automatically, or what's the point recording it if they're not available for people to listen?
I think because
it's not available.
What happened last time, Rudradeep? What is it?
I don't know. I'll look into it, bro.
Yeah. Please sort it out, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I also searched for the recording, Prabhu.
Last class. Was it here? September 3, 1969?
1 minute. We were... No, we are in New York, April 5th to 11, 1973. I mean, that's where my bookmark stands. We are in Zurich and New York chapter. After April 1973, then New York, sorry, not after, it starts with April 1973. Then the next section is April 5th to 11th, 1973.
What's the latest section?
The next section. New York, April 5th to 11th, 1973.
April 5th. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Who'd like to read today? Any volunteers?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I can read.
Yes, Madhuri. Please go
My
ahead.
voice is audible?
Yeah, very clear.
Okay. New York, April 5th to 11th, 1973. Radha Vallabha. Seeing that it was such a hellish place, it was always wonderful when Prabhupada would come to Brooklyn. The neighbors, the Italians hated us and the Puerto Ricans liked us but wanted to rob us. It was just an abominable, dark, filthy neighborhood full of hate. When Prabhupada would come, the devotees would fill the streets. They would line the steps of the Brooklyn temple, all cheering with their arms in the air as Prabhupada would walk through. He was always pleased to come to Brooklyn, to see all the devotees in that horrible place, to see the press and see the new paintings. He always appreciated seeing Radha Govinda offering his obeisances to them, leading kirtan and giving lectures in that Brooklyn temple. Daivi Shakti, myself and another big book distributor were invited to go on a morning walk with Prabhupada. We went to the park. Brahmananda Swami and Bali Mardan were there. Prabhupada began the conversation saying, I had a dream. So everyone was listening very intently, and Prabhupada continued, I dreamed that we had a boat and there were 25 of us in the boat, 12 sannyasis and 12 brahmacharis and myself. We went all over the world, and in each port we had Sankirtan. Sorry. When Prabhupada described this ecstatic dream, Bali Mardan and Ramananda Swami both began telling Prabhupada about their boat experiences. They said they were both boatmen and would try to help Prabhupada, and he was pleased to hear it. Rukmini, one morning while we were walking in New York, Prabhupada picked a flower from a vine and brought it back to the temple. It was a fragrant white flower. When he picked it and smelled it, he said, this should be planted all around our Mayapur complex. Later, I took that flower and found out that the name of it was silver lace vine or fleece vine. Pancharatna. I had just gotten videotape equipment, and it was the first time Prabhupada was videotaped. After we made the tape, we brought it in to show him. It was a lecture that Prabhupada gave in the temple. At the end of the lecture, he had gotten up and was looking at the deities during the kirtan. He was just about to leave when he became more attracted to the kirtan and started clapping and dancing. While this was happening, I had been there all the time with the cameras zooming in and zooming out. Then we showed it to Srila Prabhupada and he watched it very closely. When the kirtan part came on the tape, Prabhupada again started clapping and chanting. He said it was very nice. Janava. Prabhupada sat on his asan in his large reception room beneath the picture of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Paintings were stacked all around the room to await his evaluation. Present were Jayadvaita, Murlidhara, Parikshit, Jadurani, Pushkara, a photographer, and myself. Srila Prabhupada was very businesslike and fairly aloof. Later, upon reflection, it seemed to me that this aloofness by Prabhupada was actually a major step in weaning the art department away from his constant supervision and their habit of always asking him questions during his visits and by letters. There was one painting of Lord Krishna who was sitting and looking very sad because he couldn't find Radharani. Prabhupada asked what the pastime was, but then he objected and said, Krishna doesn't lament. The artist Jadurani appeared very discouraged to have misrepresented Krishna. Prabhupada continued discussing the other paintings, but then he turned to Jadurani and remarked, It's all right. This painting can be used to show another pastime when Krishna had a headache. After Prabhupada discussed the various paintings, I then showed Prabhupada some drawings done by the Gurukula children. One picture was done by Saraswati Dasi. On one side of the paper, she had drawn a circle to indicate a face, two dots for eyes, a smile, and a peacock feather in the hair. On the reverse side of the paper, she drew fine dots. Her explanation was, if you hold the paper to the light, then you can see Krishna appearing in the universe. When Srila Prabhupada saw this picture and heard her explanation, he became thoughtful, thinking of Saraswati. If Saraswati would see someone, Prabhupada recalled, she would ask, Do you know who is Krishna? Then she herself would answer, He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Prabhupada said this, he gestured by pointing his finger, indicating the strength of Saraswati's conviction. Nayanabhirama. When Prabhupada came to New York in 1973, we were asked to put on a production of the Ramayana. We had only one day to put it together. That was why we didn't use dialogue. We couldn't memorize the lines on such short notice. We performed for Prabhupada with gestures and a dialogue was spoken off the stage. The next morning, right after Mangalarti, I was asked to go see Prabhupada. It was still dark in his quarters and he was sitting in his back room. He asked me if I was responsible for last night's production. I didn't know how to answer because I didn't know whether he was going to chastise me or praise me. Then he said it was good, but he had some suggestions for improving it. He said that instead of one voice narrating, we should have a different voice for each character who was to speak. Also, there was a controversy over using a guitar or a sitar as musical accompaniment. Prabhupada said we shouldn't play the sitar if we didn't know how. It was better to play a guitar expertly than a sitar incompetently. Radha Vallabha. Prabhupada was complaining that the books weren't coming out. Later on, someone came over to the press and said that Prabhupada had found a spelling mistake. It was a big mistake in the misuse of a single word. So I went and asked Prabhupada where the mistake was. He said, I don't know. I think it was in that chapter there. So I pulled out all the flats and looked for it. He said, no, maybe it was that one. I pulled out more sheets and he said, no, I think it was in that torn one. Then after I pulled out all the sheets, he said, never mind, just print it. At that point, I could see that was Prabhupada's attitude towards his books. I could see he wasn't satisfied that we spent so much time trying to fix all the spelling and composing errors. In this case, he wanted to get the book out, even if it meant later he had to correct the mistake. Balavanta. I was in Atlanta and we had just done political preaching by running for mayor of the city. Prabhupada called me to come to New York and see him. When I went into his room, he wanted to talk politics. He had different arguments. He said, "So what do they say?" I said, "Prabhupada, they say it is not practical. Our program is not practical." Prabhupada said, "It is not practical because they will not take to it. Otherwise, it is practical. It is the only solution." Prabhupada said the rascals would not take it, and yet, if they did, it would solve their problems. He said, "We have no complicated political program, only one program. Our program is chant Hare Krishna, that's all. And if the people will meet together regularly and chant Hare Krishna, they will be successful." I would give Prabhupada all the arguments I had received, and he would always defeat them. Kirti Raja, I had to take Prabhupada to the Indian consulate to arrange that they grant devotees visas. In the conversation with the consul, Prabhupada raised his voice loudly and spoke strongly in Bengali. None of us had any idea of what was being said except for the few English words throughout the conversation. But we could understand that he was speaking quite forcefully to the man. At the end of the conversation, Prabhupada told me to present the list of devotees going to India and arrange to gather their passports. He said that the consul agreed to grant them 1-year visas. We finished the meeting and went out to the car. In the meantime, it had gotten dark and started to rain very hard. As we sat in the car, Prabhupada said, "I spoke very strongly to him. Did that?" I agreed. And then Prabhupada looked at us again and said, "Yes, I can do this, but you cannot." He said, "I'm an old man. They don't take me seriously. But if you were to speak to someone who was older than you or your age, and if you speak very strongly, they will become offended. But I'm an old man, so I can do this, but you cannot." Then, as we were driving through the rush hour traffic and the rain, I was nervous because Prabhupada was in the car. It was difficult to see because the windows were fogging over. I was thinking it was such nasty, horrible weather. When all of a sudden, Prabhupada turned to me and said, "The rain is very pleasing." Without the rain, nothing on the earth could be. I was shocked because it was as if he were reading my mind. I had been cursing and condemning the weather, and Prabhupada turned to me casually and said the rain was nice. As we were driving, Prabhupada asked us if we had noticed what was written on the plaque as we entered the Indian consulate. Although we had all stopped and glanced at it, we all had to tell Prabhupada that none of us could remember. Prabhupada then said that an intelligent man notices all of his surroundings. He even notices how many beams are in the ceiling above his head. He said one time, one of his friends asked him, "Do you know how many cars are there in the Punjab Mail Express?" Prabhupada said he told the man how many cars there were exactly, that he was right. Another time when Prabhupada was in New York, he went to see a building on Park Avenue for sale. We were thinking of acquiring it for the New York temple. It was a very big building on the upper side of Park Avenue. We pulled up on the opposite side of the street in front of a small Spanish grocery store. We got out of the car and looked over at the building. The front doors of the building were open, and due to light from the front hall, a golden glow was coming out through the open doors into the evening darkness. Prabhupada said, "Ah, Sri Gauranga Hall." Prabhupada and Balimardan were speaking about the possibility of buying this building. And the next thing I knew, Balimardan hit me in the arm and said, "Prabhupada wants a 7-Up." I looked at Prabhupada and said, "Prabhupada, 7-Up?" Prabhupada nodded yes. But I repeated, "Prabhupada, do you really mean 7-Up?" Again he nodded yes. I said, "You mean it's lemonade with bubbles? Is that what you mean?" Prabhupada again said, 7-Up. So I went to the store and brought a can of 7-Up. I went out to the street and gave it to Balimardan, who popped open the top and gave it to Prabhupada. And as we stood there on Park Avenue in our dhotis, Prabhupada held the can up and poured the drink straight into his mouth without touching the can to his lips. When we drove back to the temple, it was the biggest story of the day. Prabhupada drank 7-Up on Park Avenue. Radha Vallabha. We could always tell that Prabhupada was pleased that we were staying in that horrible place to preach his mission. We could always sense he felt New York was the important place to preach because he had first gone there, and that he was pleased that we were continuing where he had first brought Krishna consciousness to the West. A letter from Prabhupada to Kirtiraja and his wife Hari Puja, 1973. You are one of the trusted managers of the New York temple. I am very much glad to see that the standard of temple activities is so nice. So Krishna has given you American intelligence, and I think this New York City is the greatest city in the world. So all you managers cooperate together and do something gorgeous. This is my instruction to you, and if you can do it, Krishna will be very much pleased with you.
You can continue, Mataji. We'll have some discussion a little later. We just started, so you just continue.
Chapter 65, A World Tour, January 1975. From Bombay, Srila Prabhupada planned a world tour beginning January 25th that would take him to 12 major cities within 50 days, ending back in Bombay. His journey would not only completely orbit the planet eastward, but would dip into the southern hemisphere as far south as Venezuela. It would be the 8th time Srila Prabhupada had traveled around the world in his 10 years of preaching since going to America from India in 1965. He would enter 7 different countries and travel 34,000 miles. Due back in India by March for the second international gathering of his disciples at Sridham Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada would have to move quickly. Almost 1,000 ISKCON devotees from all over the world were planning to be in India for this year's festival. This year was very special because after years of work and 2 prematurely announced openings, Srila Prabhupada would at last hold the grand opening of the ISKCON Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan and install the deities of Gaur Nitai, Krishna Balaram, and Radha Shyamsundar. Srila Prabhupada had come to Vrindavan in September 1974, desiring to open the temple on Krishna's appearance day, but he had been disappointed by delays in construction. At that time, Srila Prabhupada became seriously ill in Vrindavan. His fever dangerously high. He had given permission to devotees in all the ISKCON temples to hold 24-hour kirtan to pray for his recovery. He had gradually regained his health, and he was now eating and translating again after several weeks. Srila Prabhupada wanted to travel before the Mayapur Vrindavan festival, but he had been delayed in Bombay, waiting for the local government to grant the no objection certificate so construction of his temple could begin. When Srila Prabhupada's governing body commission secretary from South America, Hridayananda Goswami, wrote asking him to please visit South America, he replied, "Yes, I want to come there very much. Now we are in Bombay, trying to get permission from the government to build our temple. And it appears that we will possibly be getting this permission next week. If this works out, then I will immediately be going to Honolulu. And from Honolulu, I can go directly to Mexico City, then Caracas. If the Bombay situation is not settled up, I may have to stay until mid-January." But not until the end of January did the Bombay municipality finally grant the no objection certificate. Srila Prabhupada was then free to travel. Prabhupada had said on different occasions that he traveled to keep his devotees spiritually alive. Although sometimes Srila Prabhupada would say he wanted to stay in one place and write his books, he regularly felt compelled to oversee personally the growth of his Krishna consciousness mission on each continent. His time was limited, he felt, and he wanted to strengthen his disciples in their execution of Krishna consciousness so they could continue in his absence. He had to travel, but even while traveling, he would continue his translation and commentary of the Srimad Bhagavatam wherever he stopped. Despite his advanced age of 80 years, despite the disruptive travel hours, the jet lag, the inconveniences of waiting in airports, and of custom delays, Prabhupada was determined to maintain his writing schedule wherever he went. Srila Prabhupada's literary paraphernalia was a dictating machine and reference books. A secretary, Paramahamsa Swami, a personal servant, Shrutakirti, and a Sanskrit student, Nitai, were Prabhupada's traveling entourage. In this way, he was prepared to preach and write anywhere and everywhere. His first stop was Hong Kong. Paramahamsa Swami. It was always funny to be in the airport with Prabhupada. People would just come up and without any introduction say, "Hi, what are you doing?" And Prabhupada would start speaking with them on that level. It was really different than hearing him talk with the devotees. Sometimes they would come up with a weird question. Prabhupada would give a humorous answer, and often the person wouldn't understand and would leave. Only one disciple, Trivikram Swami, was stationed in Hong Kong. But just before Srila Prabhupada's arrival, Panchadravida Swami arrived from Bangkok to greet Srila Prabhupada. Sudama Vipraswamy, who had disassociated himself from ISKCON, also showed up for Prabhupada's arrival. These three sannyasis greeted Prabhupada at the airport. Trivikramaswamy had rented a luxury suite at the Hong Kong Hilton for Srila Prabhupada and had arranged a speaking engagement in the Hilton's convention hall. About 200 Indians and a few Chinese attended. After speaking 40 minutes, from the first verse of the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada concluded, if you want to get out of Maya's activities, then you have to take to Krishna consciousness. There is no other way out. This is a scientific movement. Anyone intelligent, any thoughtful person, he must take to Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, he is doomed. During Srila Prabhupada's 2-day stay, the devotees took him to a park in the heart of the city. It was so crowded with people that Srila Prabhupada declared it hellish. When they passed people doing Tai Chi exercises, Trivikram Swami called such activity useless. Do not criticize, Prabhupada said. As they walked on, Sudama Vipraswamy told Prabhupada of the floods in Mayapur. The devotees had lived on the roof of a shack and had had to fight off the snakes seeking shelter there. Srila Prabhupada appreciated. Yes, you did much service at that time. Prabhupada asked of another devotee the difficulties he had faced in Krishna consciousness. Each told of some incident of austerities. What was your most troublesome time in Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada? Trivikram Swami asked. Prabhupada became silent, then said, better you don't ask. In the devotee's small apartment, Prabhupada affirmed that Hong Kong was an important place to preach. Even if only one man remained, they should still develop the center there. We can print Chinese Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada said. Someday China will open and we can go in. Panchadravida Swami had only come to visit Prabhupada, but Prabhupada told him, you shall become our new manager for the Hong Kong Center. When Prabhupada said this, the other devotees responded, Jai, Jai. But Panchadravida Maharaj felt bewildered. I have to stay in Hong Kong, he thought. But then he remembered the letter Prabhupada had just written him. Prabhupada had stated that a devotee must be like a reaping machine. The Bengali saying is that a reaping machine will repeat in heaven or hell. So the devotee must serve Krishna in heaven or hell. Panchadravida had considered returning to India, but now Prabhupada said it is not very important. If you go back to India, the only thing that is important is to continue service. The important thing was to distribute books in Hong Kong. Prabhupada told him, it doesn't matter whether people come to the programs. Somehow he should publish books in the Chinese language and distribute them. In this way, the work would go on. Tokyo, January 27-28. Suspicious Japanese immigration officials delayed Srila Prabhupada and considered not giving him a visa. Granting no more than a 2-day transit visa, they finally allowed him to enter. After such a poor reception, Prabhupada was royally greeted by Dai Nippon printers of Tokyo. Their white-gloved, uniformed chauffeur picked up Srila Prabhupada at the airport in a Mercedes and drove him to the ISKCON center. Even though Srila Prabhupada's BBT was printing with American printers by 1975, Dai Nippon was still competitively bidding for their work. The BBT was an important contract for any printer to gain, and Srila Prabhupada was the BBT's sole author and publishing director. A seasoned traveler familiar with the sights and sounds of almost every continent, Srila Prabhupada was accustomed to these short trips in the Orient. When in India, he could tell his godbrothers and friends about lands and peoples they had only read of in books. Yet, wherever Srila Prabhupada went, he remained fixed in transcendental consciousness. His lectures on the Bhagavad Gita in Tokyo were the same as in Hong Kong or in America. The message, surrender to Krishna, was universally and urgently applicable in every town and village. But sometimes Srila Prabhupada would spice his talks with local references. Everyone is suffering. That is a fact, Srila Prabhupada said during a class in the small Tokyo ISKCON temple. He was describing the inherent miseries in material life. Just like now, Prabhupada said, two big directors of Dai Nippon company came to see me. We have got business with them, so they are meeting so many problems for their printing work. They are maintaining about 200,000 people to carry on their business. They have a huge establishment, huge responsibility, but there are problems also. So this material world is full of problems. One who understands this is called Sura, or a civilized man. Citing the alternative miseries of heat and cold, Prabhupada referred to Tokyo's cold climate, which was so severe that it prevented him from taking his morning walks. This winter season comes and we do not want chilly cold. Therefore, we are covering our body. Prabhupada said, the cause of our covering is that we are suffering. But after covering, if we feel some pleasure, what is this pleasure? It is only for the time being some arrangement that we stop suffering. This is the nature of material enjoyment. Japanese students were attending Prabhupada's class and Prabhupada addressed them directly. When we are in danger in Japan, Prabhupada said, you have got many times the experience of earthquake, do you not? So what do you do at that time? You all Japanese boys and girls, what do you do? Have you experienced earthquake? You have? What do you do at that time? Prabhupada paused in his talk, inviting the Japanese boys and girls to speak out and tell him something, but they sat still, looking at him silently. When there is earthquake, Prabhupada continued, what do you do? But I have seen in America, everyone, they scream. Prabhupada's audience broke into laughter. And perhaps they remember about God, Prabhupada said. Naturally, they will remember, God, save us. That means that we do not wish to die. That is a fact. You cannot say that death is a very good thing. No one will say, but we have to die. But you don't want death. This is suffering. And not only in death, but even in lifetime. Just like we are an old man. Who wants to become an old man? Everyone wants to remain youthful. This is undesirable. This is suffering. Actually, we are suffering because we are an old man. We are suffering so many diseases, so many inconveniences. If I am not helped by 3 or 4 men, then I cannot even move. So this is suffering. Just like now in Tokyo City, Prabhupada continued, you are making very big buildings everywhere, all over the world, to live very comfortably. But that comfortable life is also not assured because you will have to die. Therefore, it is called ashashvatam, not permanent. This is to be understood first. Those who are intelligent, they are very pessimistic. And one who is satisfied with this temporary so-called happiness, he is called asura. By the grace of the Krishna consciousness movement, the asuras were becoming suras. Prabhupada concluded. For this, he was traveling, to give them education, to understand what is absolute truth. Only if one took to Krishna consciousness could he become asura, the perfect man, and make his life successful. Prabhupada gave 2 lectures in Japan. In his second talk, he argued that because there is design in nature, there must be a designer. His logic and his examples were precise and vigorous. He referred to local governmental organization within a city and how it is controlled by persons. Similarly, when I see that the cosmic order is working so nicely and systematically and reasonably, how can I say there is no controller? How can you say logic? Tell me, anyone. Can you say anyone? How can you say there is no controller? Jagat Ahur Anishwaram. What is their logic? You tell me. Prabhupada wanted a challenge from his audience, so he pointed to his secretary. You are sometimes on their side. What is your logic? Paramhamsa. Well, no controller is ever seen, Prabhupada. But you have not seen who is the Japanese government's president. How can you conclude there is no government? You have not seen the president or the supreme head. But how can you say there is no government? Otherwise, how was it going on so nicely? You may not see so many things, but that does not mean anything. That is not good logic that I have not seen. Someone in the audience put forward the theory of chance, and Prabhupada responded with great enthusiasm to defeat the nonsense theory. Krishna is not alone, Prabhupada said. Krishna means that he has got many energies. Just like a tiny person like me, Bhaktivedanta Swami, I have this movement, and I'm not alone. I have got so many assistants all over the world. I was the originator. I was the founder. So I'm not alone. Similarly, as I have expanded with my disciples in so many ways, in so many places, I can expand. I am a common man. But how can Krishna expand? We can just imagine. He is the Supreme Lord, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam. He can expand himself. But he is the only person. He is doing everything, just like I am replying to dozens of letters from all over the world and trying to manage. Similarly, he is also maintaining alone, Anantarupam, by unlimited assistance. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. You have to understand like that. Among the dozens of letters and the worldwide managerial problems, Prabhupada referred to a particularly disturbing bit of news arrived during his 2-day visit in Japan. The police in Germany had raided the ISKCON temple in Frankfurt and confiscated money from the bank accounts. They had trumped up charges of solicitation fraud, and a mass propaganda war was mounting against Krishna consciousness through inimical German media. When Prabhupada received a distress letter from his leader in Germany, Hamsaduta, he asked that Hamsaduta come and meet him in Hawaii. Now, while in Japan, Prabhupada received a telegram from Bhagwan Das, the GBC for Southern Europe, who would temporarily manage affairs in Germany. Prabhupada replied, try to manage Germany, London, and Paris. The main business in Germany is to reply to the charges and rescue the frozen money. In England, we have to revive the Rath Yatra festival, which has now stopped by the police intrigue. In Paris, you require a large place to accommodate devotees, so find out a suitable place. In this way, even while traveling rapidly, staying only a day or two in faraway places, Prabhupada received and replied to messages regarding the urgent affairs of his worldwide movement. These affairs were always on Srila Prabhupada's mind in one way or another. He alone was the ultimate judge of the affairs of ISKCON, and he knew best ISKCON's inner workings. As he had said in his class, he was assisted by many expansions, and yet he was still the single supreme person in ISKCON. In this case, supreme not only meant the most exalted and worshipable personality, but the person who had to take the most anxiety and whose deliberations were the most demanding. This also confirmed the need for Prabhupada's traveling. By traveling and inspiring the leaders in each city and country, he could avoid disasters and irregularities and keep his armies strong on all fronts against the invasions of Maya, which were liable to occur, which were occurring from day to day. Shall I continue, Prabhu? Hawaii,
Yes,
January
yes,
20
Madhi. Yes, Madhi. Please continue. Yeah.
January 29 to February 9. Shrutakirti. On the Pan Am Airlines from Tokyo to Hawaii, Prabhupada was reading something about women's liberation. He said, If these women want to be liberated, then tell them to shave their heads like us, and they can be liberated. Prabhupada asked Nitai Das to call one of the stewardesses over and tell her, if you want to be like a man, then shave your head. Go ahead, Prabhupada nudged Nitai. Cut a joke. Call her over here. Tell her. Nitai hesitated, but Prabhupada seemed serious. Tell her to shave her head. Then she can be a man if she wants to be liberated. Although Prabhupada repeatedly asked that he call the stewardess and make the joke, Nitai wouldn't do it. So Prabhupada finally let it go. It wasn't the first time Srila Prabhupada was faced with a controversy when he arrived in Hawaii. Hawaii was such a place where groups of devotees gathered who did not want to follow strictly the rules and regulations and who supported their deviancy from the ISKCON norm with their own philosophies. One such devotee, after breaking away from ISKCON, had gathered his own followers and preached to them and to newcomers that it was best not to live in the temple. He did not advocate that one follow the rules and regulations strictly, nor did he conduct any organized preaching activity, only casual chanting of Hare Krishna. Prabhupada tolerated this leader and his splinter group, even though it was his own ISKCON they were criticizing. He wanted to encourage anyone who was chanting Hare Krishna or desiring to be his follower. If they chanted Hare Krishna, he said, they would gradually be purified. Those living outside the temple and following the principles loosely said that Prabhupada approved of their activities and of their leader, while those devotees living faithfully in ISKCON criticized the divergent group. Arguments went back and forth, and Srila Prabhupada's arrival became an occasion for direct confrontation. That Prabhupada was traveling to all his ISKCON centers, including the ISKCON in Hawaii, and not to the other group's headquarters, was in itself conclusive. When there were threats to his one and only temple, that ISKCON was located at 26 2nd Avenue in New York City, he had been like a worried father. But now Prabhupada's transcendental worries had expanded as his family spread out into 100 centers in countries all over the world. After Prabhupada arrived in Hawaii, some of the persons involved in the controversy brought their philosophical issues before him. He once again clarified his position and the position of his true followers. While walking one morning with devotees on Waikiki Beach, Prabhupada answered their questions about the nature of pure devotional service. Devotee, I have heard there is a philosophy here among some of the devotees that if you chant Hare Krishna, you can go back to the spiritual world, even if you do not give up your independence. Prabhupada, so what is your philosophy? Devotee, well, it seems that's somewhat hypocritical because chanting Hare Krishna means that you are praying to Krishna to please be engaged eternally in his service and to become completely dependent on him. So we try to explain like that. We try to follow all the teachings and instructions, attend Mangalarti and morning and evening class. Prabhupada. So they're doing that or not? Devotee. No, they're not even following regulator principles. Prabhupada. Then devotee. They think that just by chanting, they will go back
Madhuri,
to
I
the
think
spiritual world.
two paragraphs have skipped.
Oh, is it?
So what is your philosophy? Then next is, so well, it seems somewhat hypocritical.
Yeah, I read that, no, Prabhu. I'll read it again.
Yeah. I didn't think, you generally jump to, so they're not doing that or not.
Okay. Well, it seems that somewhat hypocritical because chanting Hare Krishna means that you are praying to Krishna to be Krishna to please be engaged eternally in his service and to become completely dependent on him. So we try to explain like that. We try to follow all the teachings and instructions, attend Mangalarti and morning and evening class. Prabhupada. So they're doing that or not? Devotee. No, they're not even following regulative principles. Prabhupada. Then devotee. They think that just by chanting, they will go back to the spiritual world. That is enough. Prabhupada. Then what is the meaning of the 10 kinds of offenses? If he's chanting without offense, then it is all right. But if he is committing offenses, then it will not be effective. There are 10 kinds of offenses. Whether he is strictly offenseless, then he is all right. If he is offender, then it will not be fruitful. Or it will be fruitful, but it will take a long time. Because, first of all, you must become offenseless. So, if they are committing offenses, how can they be perfect? He is committing the offense of not following the rules and regulations. That means he's thinking that whatever I can do will be adjusted by chanting the name. Is it not? Devotee. Yes, that's one of the offenses. Prabhupada. That is called the greatest offense. Namno balat yasya hi papa buddhihi. I can go on committing sinful activity, but by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, it will be adjusted. That is the greatest offense. So explain it to them. The devotees then asked if chanting without following the regulative principles strictly was just a waste of time. It was not a useless thing, Prabhupada replied, but it was a very slow process. He compared it to kindling a fire and at the same time pouring water on it. Another devotee protested that all devotees living outside the temple weren't breaking the regulative principles. He knew many who were following. Prabhupada replied, it doesn't matter that you have to live in the temple, not that everyone has to live in the temple. If he does not agree with his god brothers, with his other god brothers, friends, he can live separately, but he must follow the rules and regulations. That is wanted. But if you live with the devotees, it will automatically be done. Devotee. Yes, then it is easy. Prabhupada. Therefore, it is recommended that you live with devotees. But if you cannot agree with the devotees, you have got your own opinion, then you still can't make then you still can't make a new opinion as far as following the process is concerned. It is not a good idea to say, whatever I do, that is my independence, and I will chant. Prabhupada admitted that even if one was living in the temple, but his mind was not absorbed in Krishna consciousness, then he also could not advance quickly. But the great advantage of living in the temple could not be denied. Prabhupada, it is just like even in ordinary business, if you transact business in the stock association, you get good business. And outside the stock association, you don't get good because the association is there. There are many purchasers and many sellers. So if you have to sell, you get an immediate purchaser. And if you have to purchase, there is an immediate seller. Therefore, the stock exchange is there. So if we live together in the stock exchange of devotional service, then you can help me and I can help you. So our business will go on nicely. And
just one sec, Mother. Just a sec. I just want all of you to carefully, follow this whole conversation, because Prabhupada actually, during his time, he had dealt with this in a very intricate manner. And this is like, I don't know if this is the complete record of it. In Burijan Prabhu's My Glorious Master, also there is a very detailed description of this episode. But it's a very, very, what do you call it? It has a very great didactic value. Didactic means learning value, or rather teaching. Anyway, it has a great learning value. So we have to listen to each word here very carefully. Thank you. Please go ahead, Mr.
So if we live together in the stock exchange of devotional service, then you can help me and I can help you. So our business will go on nicely. And outside the market, you can live 300 miles away from the stock exchange, but you will not get so many business opportunities. Devotee, you will miss the opportunities. Prabhupada, yes. Therefore, if you want to do business, you must take the first opportunity, the greatest opportunity. That is intelligence. And if we think, all right, I shall do it slowly, and in 700 lifetimes, I shall become perfect. That is another thing. Devotee, it is riskier to stay outside. Prabhupada, oh yes, Otherwise, why are you opening so many centers and making arrangements that we shall provide you with shelter, with food? These are the facilities. You live here. Do whatever is your capacity in the temple. Don't sleep, but work. That is our teaching. Satam prasangat. And Rupa Goswami also says, Sato vrittehe, sadhu sangat, bhakti prasidhyati. If you live with the association of the devotees, then it will be quickly fruitful. And if you live with these ordinary men, then whatever you have got will be finished very soon. In another verse, it is said that it is preferred to live within a cage surrounded by fire than to live with a non-devotee. The essential thing was to follow the order of the spiritual master, Prabhupada stated, whether in or out of the temple. He recalled that he also did not live within the temple, but still he always strictly followed his spiritual master's order. Wherever you live, Prabhupada said, if you follow strictly the instruction of the Guru, then you remain perfect. But if we create concocted ideas against the instruction of the Guru, then we go to hell. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. There is no more shelter. Finished. If the Guru thinks this person, I wanted to take him back home. I wanted to take him back to home, back to Godhead. But now he is going against me. He is not following aprasada. Then when he is displeased, everything is finished. One of the devotees asked further how one can serve the spiritual master while working at an outside job. Say, I have some outside job. I am living outside, but I am not giving 50% of my income. So then that job I'm doing, is it actually under the authority of the Guru? Prabhupada. Then you are not following the instruction of Guru. That is plain fact. Devotee. So that means the whole activity during the day working, that means that I am not following the instruction of the Guru. It's unauthorized activity. Prabhupada. Yes, if you don't follow the instruction of the Guru, then you have fallen down immediately. Another confrontation took place in Srila Prabhupada's room with devotees who insisted they could faithfully obey Srila Prabhupada, but could not follow his GBC representative or his ISKCON. One dissenter had devised an intricate philosophy that Srila Prabhupada was all-knowing and expert spiritually, but not materially. Prabhupada can't build a jet engine, he said. He can't build a nuclear reactor. Therefore, he is not expert materially, but he is expert spiritually. Most of the devotees rejected this concoction. According to Shastra, the pure devotee, unlike the yogi, completely depends on Krishna for his ability. The yogi tries to develop powers to do wonderful things like walking on water or becoming invisible. But a devotee's powers come through his surrender to Krishna, who creates his devotees' expertise. According to this new theory, since Prabhupada had to depend on his own men, his disciples, to know what was going on in ISKCON, he was unaware of how badly the GBC were mismanaging, of how they were misconducting the book distribution, and of how they were mistreating the devotees. Prabhupada was not aware because these activities were occurring on the material platform. In this way, they reached their conclusion of faith and trust in Prabhupada, but refused to work within his society with his representatives. The devotees in Prabhupada's room had formerly been leaders of ISKCON Hawaii, but had left and were now threatening to use the funds and properties in their own name. Prabhupada kept asking them simply, why did you leave? Why don't you stay? Why don't you surrender? But they insisted that while they trusted Prabhupada, they could not trust the GBC. One of the GBC members in the room became exasperated with their refusal to accept Prabhupada's simple request of surrender. You say that you accept Prabhupada? Yes, they replied. And you say you have faith in him? Yes. You say that whatever he asks, you can follow? Yes. So then, if Prabhupada asks you to follow the GBC, will you do it? The room became tense and silent. No, we cannot follow. When they uttered that no, Prabhupada dropped his fist on the table and pointed to the deviant devotees, declaring, just see the hypocrisy. Even after Prabhupada's stark conclusion, they maintained their we surrender to you but not to Islam philosophy until Prabhupada asked them to leave. To the other devotees remaining in the room, Prabhupada remarked, when they say they don't like ISKCON and the GBC, they are really saying they don't like to follow my order. That means they don't like my order. That means they don't have faith in my order. That means they don't have faith in me. That means Guru Aparadha. To say they have faith in me is just hypocrisy. Shrutakirti. Finally, Prabhupada was ready to leave. Just before he was ready to go, he said he wanted to see me. He said, Shrutakirti, so now you are going to stay here? Your wife is here and child? I said, yes, Prabhupada. He said, yes, so stay here as householder and manage the temple. But all along I was thinking, I really should go with Prabhupada. He had no one with him. He had no servant or anything. But I said, yes, Prabhupada, I think I should stay. And he replied, so that is good. Yes, you stay here with your wife. But one of the sannyasis in the room started laughing and said, yes, you know what they call the wife and child? They are known as tigress and jackal. Then the sannyasi asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I know why the woman is called a tigress, but why are the children considered jackals? Prabhupada replied, well, the children, in so many ways, they create so many inconveniences for the father. They are always requiring things and sometimes disturbing him, and he cannot sleep. In this way, it is like eating the flesh of the father. This is the business of jackals, eating flesh. So the children are like jackals. They are always putting the father in so much disturbance and difficulty. So I was sitting there thinking, gee, here I am. And Prabhupada is telling me to stay with the tiger, jackal. So then I said, Prabhupada, I think I should come with you. And Prabhupada simply said, all right.
Yeah, okay, Mati,
Rasan?
you can just pause there.
Yes,
Um,
Prabhu.
Yeah, okay. So we've had a very because this is not this is volume 7, so everything is not uh, it's not like one flowing uh, narrative in the sense that it goes from one place to another place. For example, we started with New York 1973, then from there we went to a world tour, because that is what is described in the world tour is 1975, but what was described earlier was New York, Zurich, of course, and then world tour. So we are going to different places here because of the fact that it is this is just a compilation of things which were not put into the original 6 volumes. Okay, so the first thing is that here in the when Prabhupada examines the when Prabhupada is given the flower to in the morning, and okay, even before that, we saw how Prabhupada dreamt of a boat, and there are 25 of us on the boat, 12 sannyasis and 12 brahmacharis and myself. We went all over the world, and each port we had Sankirtan. So these are the matters, subject matters of Prabhupada's dream. You know, that a boat and a traveling Sankirtan and 12 sannyasis, 12 brahmacharis, and himself to conquer the world with Sankirtan. So Prabhupada would sometimes use the analogy that the British colonized the world. So then Prabhupada would say, this is called the colonization of the world through Sankirtana. So that's what Prabhupada did. He colonized the world through Sankirtan. And he referred to the activity of this colonization as the great transcendental adventure, this act of trying to colonize the world through Krishna consciousness. Then we see how Prabhupada, when he got that beautiful fragrant white flower, he said that they should be planted all over our Mayapur complex. Then we see how with Jadurani, she had done a painting which depicted Krishna alone. So Prabhupada did not just, Prabhupada made a strong point that Krishna does not lament, but at the same time, he recognized the sincere work Mother Jadurani had put in bringing out that painting, in coming out with that painting. So he said, "Oh, this painting can be used to show another pastime where Krishna had a headache." And then Prabhupada appreciated Saraswati's drawing, very simple drawing, and that fantastic explanation. If you hold the paper to the light, then you can see Krishna appearing in the universe. Okay. Prabhupada also, we see Radha Vallabh Prabhu explaining, the Prabhupada is more interested in getting the books out rather than endlessly trying to correct it. So he wanted to get them out and said he can do it later. Okay, that doesn't mean that that's not a carte blanche to carte blanche or whatever, to keep editing books eternally. I mean, Prabhupada just talks about that particular context. And Prabhupada visits the Indian consulate. There he says that I'm an old man, they don't take me seriously. But if you speak to someone who's older than you or your age, and if you speak very strongly, they'll become offended. So, of course, this episode is sometimes used to say that we should not preach strongly. But that's not the intent of this particular conversation. Here, what is being said is to speak inappropriately. But to present the philosophy strongly is not inappropriate talk, because here we see that Prabhupada, this is a matter about visas, and Prabhupada is speaking very forcefully to him. This is not some preaching some some Krishna conscious philosophy. Of course, Prabhupada would also have spoken some philosophy, but the context was arranging visas for devotees. It was not book distribution or preaching or something like that. Of course, you could say that arranging visas for devotees is also a form of preaching, but it's of a different kind than what is normally the standard. And then there is the pastime of Prabhupada drinking 7-Up on Park Avenue. This is something that we need to be conscious of, that a great acharya like Prabhupada can do some certain things because of his stature, but we can't do that. So we are meant to do what he asked us to do. We are not meant to do everything that he did. This is one particular example. And later on, I don't know which temple it was. Was it Bombay? I'm not sure, where they brought a whole crate of 7-Ups and Prabhupada disapproved of that. Prabhupada was displeased when he saw that devotees were using such contexts. I mean, using such examples to do things out of context. Prabhupada also once drank 7-Up in a flight. Then we see how Prabhupada say someday China will open and we can go in. Like how in the context of Hong Kong and any place, Prabhupada is saying that even if one man remained, they should still develop the center. So that is Prabhupada's principle, that if one man is enough. One man is enough. The one man principle. The important things in Hong Kong, Prabhupada tells Panchadravida Swami, The most important thing was to distribute books in Hong Kong. Prabhupada told him, doesn't matter whether people came to the programs. Then we see how he meets with the Dai Nippon printers. And then Prabhupada defines a sura or a civilized man as one who understands that this material world is full of problems. That is a sign of a civilized man. That means if we don't understand that this material world is full of problems, then we are not sura or civilized man. This morning, someone sent me a very beautiful reference of Prabhupada. I'll just read that out. Talking about just trying to pull that out. What is auspicious and inauspicious? Okay. So there's a question about comets, and Prabhupada says, "What is this auspicity now? What is auspicity now?" He repeats. We are describing all inauspicity, even without the comet, laughter. Where do you find the auspicity? The one man said that he has kicked me, he has beaten me with shoes, and again he has said that I shall insult you. Where is the scarcity of insult? If he's beaten by shoes and kicked by his leg, and still he's expecting some more insult, you're already inauspicity. Why are you expecting more inauspicity by the presence of comet? We're already in inauspicity, and therefore these descriptions are there. You have no fixture, anything. Where to live, where to take bath, where to eat, where to have sex life, nothing fixed up. Everything catastrophe, chaos. What more inauspicity you want? Everywhere. Here, even one problem. Another in another country, another problem, another problem, another problem. He must be problematic. Because anyone who is not Krishna conscious, he must be punished by the laws of nature. Srimad Bhagavatam, lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam 11622, January 18, 1974, in Honolulu, in Hawaii. So we were reading from 1975, but this was just 1 year ago in Honolulu, in Hawaii. So, yeah. So I'm Prabhupada has a very amazing sense of humor, even when describing a very serious subject matter, as we can see in this anecdote which I just read out. So Prabhupada defines that a sura is someone who understands that this material world is full of problems. Then he talks about, have you experienced the earthquake? And then he says, he asks them, how do people react to an earthquake? So then they don't respond. Then he says, but I've seen in America, everyone, they scream. And perhaps they remember about God, Prabhupada said. Naturally, they will remember, God save us. That means we do not wish to die. That is a fact. So Prabhupada says, asura means one who accepts a temporary happiness. And sura means one who gives education about the absolute truth by understanding that this material life is full of problems. Such a person, and who tries to give the Krishna consciousness movement and turn the asuras into suras. Okay, well, that's that incident about the flight, the incident in the flight with Chutakita Prabhu, recollecting how he Prabhupada asked Nitai to go and tell the stewardess to shave her head and then she'll get liberated. That's very humorous. Then we had this episode of Ali Prabhupada, the specific follower that is being referred to here is Siddha Swarupananda. He still continues to be independent of ISKCON. Tulsi Gabbard, who ran for the president, I think the previous time, 2019. She didn't run this time. She is a follower of Siddha Swarupananda. So this is the whole thing about Prabhupada being perfect spiritually, but materially he was not so perfect. Therefore, he appointed um, imperfect managers and all that. You know. So the point that we need to understand is nothing is perfect in this world. It's not possible to find a perfect person except a pure devotee. So we have to get used to living with imperfections. I'm not saying we should get used to living with compromises. Prabhupada, we can see how Prabhupada is coming on strongly against compromise. But we should learn to live with imperfections. So, and Prabhupada is not, so the fact that they were not willing to accept the system that he had put in place, Prabhupada calls that hypocrisy. Okay, any thoughts, questions, reflections? We won't read more today because I have some service I have some service and I need to travel out of Mayapur tomorrow. So I've got some work to do. So we won't have further reading, but we can have some reflections, questions, and so on. And yeah, we'll resume next week. Any thoughts, reflections, questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah.
I have a small this one, the last this one where like Shritakirti Prabhu, he wanted to stay there and he said that then some sannyasi, he told that the wife is like tigress and children are like jackal. But we have seen that when the family, they are supportive of Krishna consciousness, then how can we think that they are against regress or jackal or something like that, probably? Because they are also supporting their husbands in Krishna consciousness. They are also like following all the instructions and doing the bhakti or sadhana or whatever.
Okay, I think that this is very important. I mean, I'm really sorry that I forgot to bring up this point. Okay, this is a very important point that you have brought up. That Prabhupada was very kind and compassionate. You know, it is not that Shrutakirti Prabhu explained what was going on in his mind and then Prabhupada confirmed it. That is not what happens here. You know, Prabhupada is generally talking about the general context. The idea is that material life is problematic, whether married life or non-married life. It is problematic for everyone, actually. In fact, if you look at the prayers by Rukmini, so to Krishna, in those prayers she says, no, what is the value for a woman to accept a husband made of this bag of bones and flesh and all those? Very strongly she speaks there. No, so, and similarly, for men, women are the shackles. So that cannot change, right? That is a state of thinking. The very fact that we are thinking we are a man or a woman puts us into a material state of consciousness. Just like Shukadeva Goswami, when he was walking along the bank of the river, then the ladies who were taking bath, they didn't bother to cover themselves because they knew that he was completely beyond that perception. Vyasadeva also beyond such thinking. Vyasadeva also was beyond such thinking, but when he walked, the girls immediately dressed themselves because even though he was transcendently situated, but he was acting in the role of a householder. So the very fact that we are acting in a certain manner, we are not pure devotees yet, or we are not attained love of God yet. We are acting in the path of pure devotee service. So for us, it is very difficult for us not to compromise our Krishna consciousness. It is very difficult for us to look at everything in a Krishna conscious manner. Like, for example, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Manasa deho geho jokichumor arpilo tuvapade Nanda Kishore. So whatever, my mind, my body, my possessions, my family, everything belongs to you. So Tuapade Arpilo Nanda Kishore. Jo Kichu more, whatever I have, I'm offering it unto you, unto your lotus feet. So That is the real state of consciousness. So we are not in that state of consciousness. So when we are not in that state of consciousness, we have to be very careful. If we are not very careful, then we'll end up being trapped by the material energy. And to avoid ending up being trapped by the material energy, the Shastra teaches like this. So that is the warning given by Shastra for us to be Krishna conscious. It is not meant for discriminating against devotee men or against devotee women. That is not the purpose of these statements in Shastra. I don't know if I explained myself sufficiently clearly, or I'm willing to speak more on that if it's not clear to you.
Yeah, Prabhuji, you explained it well. I understood it. But the thing is that generally people, they take whatever has given or anything on the face value, and they treat it that way, or they understand in on the only on the face value, not by the real explanations or real meaning of it.
So that is why they say even devil can quote scripture. Why are we studying the Lilamrita now? Why are we doing any kind of study of Prabhupada's books? To understand Prabhupada. No, so that's why Prabhupada, once he was asked whether he could publish, whether they could publish his conversations and all that. Prabhupada said, no, what is the need for all that? I have not said anything new there, which is not in my books. So the person Prabhupada is not different from the book Prabhupada, the book from his teachings. So whenever we see incidents like this or contexts like this, we should look at that through the teachings in his books. Not that we reorient our understanding of the books from these things. No, that's not what it is meant to be. We have to adjust our. We have to see how this fits into the teachings in his books, rather than trying to change the teachings in the book to fit in with what we are reading or seeing. I hope you understood what I'm saying.
Yes, yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, people have misused these kind of things. Lord, I don't think Shrutakirti Prabhu in his book, What's the Difficulty, brings up this. I mean, this particular way of thinking, I don't think he brings up there. Because this was published long back. I think, to my recollection, he doesn't speak like this. I mean, at least he doesn't bring out his recollection, being considerate of the fact that he may have thought about it wrongly. One should responsibly perform one's services. That's very important. And Prabhupada said things like child worship is more important than deity worship. So it's not that Prabhupada was neglectful about, Prabhupada is not bothered about how people dealt with in their family life, dealt with their spouses in their family life. Prabhupada is concerned about it and their children. Prabhupada's main concern was that, see, this is a very strong attraction. Man and woman attraction is a very strong attraction. In fact, it's the greatest attraction in this material world. And it can easily overwhelm our desire to become someone who has attained love of God. It can easily, someone who wants to attain love of God, it can easily overcome that. And so we have to be extremely conscious because it's a strong attraction in this material world. And that's how we have been conditioned for millions and billions and trillions of years. So that pushing is very strong. So unless the strength of our Krishna consciousness is sufficiently strong to counter push it, we have to be always careful. So we can take it in the sense that we have to be careful not to get into the bodily concept of life and think in terms of aham mameti, I, me, mine. So we should think in terms of Krishna consciousness. Priority should not be my sense gratification. What can I get out of my family members? It should be, what can I offer to Krishna through my family members, with my family? Is it okay, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhu.
So Rudradeep Nimai Prabhu kindly, Sailesh Govinda Prabhu really wants those recordings. He's one of the most he doesn't miss a class. He somehow or other tries to hear everything, catch up with everything. He's one of the most hardworking listeners in this class. So you need to take that seriously, and please, as soon as this class is over, please try to do that.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, so thank you all very much. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo. I am traveling for the next 2 weeks, but I mean, I will inform at least one day in advance if we do not have a class, because I don't know what the schedule is going to be. So I can't say at this point whether I can take class next Sunday or the Sunday after that. But one day before, I'll get to know. So I'll just inform you all accordingly. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanand.